quality curriculum and education. And that it's a robust process. I mean, as Kelby will tell you, as any of us can attest, writing curriculum is sort of a messy process sometimes. It's not always linear. Sometimes you go in this direction and make some adjustments and changes and move in that direction. But ultimately, it's iterative to gain a continuous improvement and to build out the value of having that well-documented curriculum. Anything you'd add there, Kelby?
Just the fact that you're an avid gardener as your images display.
Yeah, I first of all, I love metaphors and extended metaphors, so forgive that, but also I do love garden. So I got to get my garlic in the ground up here so I can get in for the winter time. All right. Any questions or thoughts, any reflections on these that people have?
You can unmute, or you can even chat with us. If you're like, I'm not a talker in the big group, you can chat over there on the side.
All right.
I think what's really awesome is how much has been thought through and really organized for you all. I know that at the diocese level, it's been really amazing in terms of the supports that are there. So really use those supports, use them as guidance for your unit planning. Some of you are going to get in and have blank slates to start from. Some of you are going to get into Atlas and have inherited curriculum from teachers that maybe have retired or left the school and you took over their courses. So we're going to have everybody in different spots as we get started here, but just kind of keep that in mind that this is a growing, breathing curriculum.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to hop in. Continue to, if you do have reflections on these pieces, feel free to send them through. I've got to try to figure out how to get the window pane so to have our faces not cover up things I need to click on, but I'll see. I think this might work. No, that's not going to work there. Nope, that's not going to work.
I just minimize the faces, Chris. I get rid of all the faces.
Aw, so nice.
And then I look at them later when I'm paused.
Yeah. Okay. So with the URLs that Kelby sent through, or if you already have your URL, great. If you want to follow along with me, you can get logged in and open that in a separate window. If you prefer to just sit back and watch, that's great. We are recording this session too. So if you need to go back as a refresher, if my voice hasn't put you to sleep already and you make it through the end, great. But if it does lull you off and you need to go back, you'll have that recording. I'll also mention too, as we go through and navigate the system, this little question mark in the upper right-hand corner on that banner at the top, if you open that up, that's going to open up our help manual specific to where you were in the system when you clicked it. So if you get into the unit plan and you can't remember, what do I do here to get my standards? Or if you're looking at some of the reports and you can't remember how to do something, that will be a really useful resource for you all. So make sure that you remember to click on that question mark if you need help. There are videos in there and kind of graphics to help you along the way. But as Kelly mentioned too, if you've got questions, I'll share my email address. Julie definitely has my email address. We are here to support you. We want to see everybody be successful in this process. All right, lay of the land. When you first log into the system, you are going to be on what we call My Dashboard. And this is similar to a lot of other tools out there where as you get working in the system and you get a feel for, what is Atlas? How do I use it? What's important for me to go to regularly? There'll probably be a need to add some shortcuts in. And that's absolutely, that's what we built this for, is really just building out panels that are shortcuts. So you can customize this dashboard by adding things, moving them around, reorienting them on the page and so forth. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there because I think this is something that as you get to use it, you'll know what's important to add, but feel free to click things around or to personalize that dashboard. And as we get going, I'll show you how you can pin things to it from when you're in those pages as well. But just wanted to explain that as sort of a customizable shortcut dashboard there at the beginning. And then the main navigation tools are going to be these tabs up at the top. So you'll have My Atlas, All Curriculum, Reports, Communities. Probably most of you won't have the admin tab here, but if there are any folks on the call who are in administration or they'll be working with adding teachers in and so forth, we can do a separate session at some point to go through some of the admin tools and functions, or there are also support materials in there as well. I think we'll start probably with how you can get in and view curriculum. Some of you, as Kelby mentioned, might be starting with the clean slate, or you might have inherited some curriculum. So we're going to spend the bulk of our time, how do we actually write curriculum and get in there? And that's where we'll end the session. But before we do that, I just want to quickly show how you can get in and get visibility across the school. So if you click on all curriculum and go down to browse.
Hey, Chris, can we make sure everyone logged in and knew that they could use their email first? That's the first thing. Let's take one step back just real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the link that either I sent you over chat or that you have, you're going to want to click on it. And if it's your first time ever logging in, you're going to put in your school email address. And if you're not sure, you just let me know and I can go look in the back end of your site and take a look. But you'll put in your school email address, and then you're going to say, it's going to ask you to email yourself. And so you're going to email. It's kind of like, it's a little bit of a making sure you're the right person. They'll email you, and from that email in your school email, you're going to be able to access, it's going to give you a link again. So that is going to be how you get on. If you've been on but you forgot your password, because I know I do all the time, just click forgot password, and again it'll email you and be able to reset the password. But it's all going to go to your school email, so that's the place you want to look. And sometimes those Atlas emails find their way into your junk or spam folder, so just double check there as well. And if you're emailing me about a link, let me know what school you are and I'll make sure that I get it to you.
All right. Yeah,
So maybe give people just a minute.
Sounds good.
And if you're having any issues, chat with me. My name's Kelby over there in the chat. I will help troubleshoot. Once you feel good, give Chris a thumbs up, either with the, the yellow thumbs up that comes with a Zoom, or, or just a real thumbs up works too.
I see a couple thumbs up. Cool.
And if anybody gets really stuck, I'll just pull you into a breakout room and we can solve it together and then get you caught up when we come back in. Teresa, you want to go in a breakout room with me? Okay, I'll put us into a breakout room. Hold on one second, okay? I'm going to solve one other problem, and then I'll pull you into a room.
Me?
No, sorry, not you, Teresa Coyle. Sorry, Teresa Roth. Teresa Rowe. There's two Teresas on top of each other.
All right. Well, while Kelby does that, I'll get going, but I'll go slow through this section so that as she solves that, there won't be a whole lot to catch up on. But once you're in, again, those tabs at the top are going to be the main tools for navigating. And I think a good way to just get used to the system before we're even thinking about writing or editing or making any changes is just to see what it looks like. And so going into that all curriculum section and clicking on browse is going to open up all of the courses in the school. I'm in the main diocesan site here. You'll see different names of courses. You'll see different colors and so forth in your own. So it'll look a little bit different, but the orientation of the page should be pretty similar. And so basically from this is a catalog of all of the different courses and curriculum that's in this system. And I can use the filters on the left-hand side to say, I only want to look at elementary school, or I only want to look at a certain grade or a certain subject. I can even type in a course name if I know that course name or title, and I can even type in a user too if I know who the person is that owns that course I want to look at. So you can use these filters on the left-hand side to hone in. There is also a drop down at the bottom there to look by year. And this is going to allow you to go back in time and look at the curriculum as it was in past years. So Atlas as a system at the end of the school year archives all of the curriculum. It saves everything, it stamps it with that school year. It rolls it forward too, because we know teachers don't want to start from scratch each year. They want to make sure that they've got what they worked on before. So it rolls it all forward so that it's there and you'll log in and you'll see all your curriculum. But any changes or adjustments or updates that you make are just going to be reflected in the current school year. And that archived unit or course is always going to be available to view or to even copy from. So if let's say you create some curriculum and then the next year you teach a different grade, and then the following year you go back to that grade you had the first time and the teachers made changes and you're like, well, okay, these are cool, but not quite for me. You can always restore or copy from the archive. So just wanted to make that clear to everybody that there are lots of tools in Atlas to safeguard that work, including the archive process. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, look at third grade English. Browse that. Now, when I'm ready to click on that course and actually view the curriculum, I'll click on the course title. So that's going to be ELA 3 for me. You can click on whatever you want in your system. And this is going to open up the unit calendar. And so from this view, I can see where the teacher has decided they're going to teach certain units of instruction throughout the year, how that fits into the pacing and the sequencing. I won't be able to edit it from this view. Ignore that I have a little view edit. I have special permissions in here, but if I'm not assigned to this course, I'm not Mary Elizabeth, I will still be able to go in and see the units that Mary Elizabeth has created, where they're taught, and so forth. And once I'm ready to actually dive into the unit itself and take a look at the content, I'll go over here on the left-hand side and click on the unit. So I'll do that in just a sec, but I want to pause and see if there's any questions, if anybody's lost on their end. Looking good. Okay. All right. All right. So once I'm ready to do that, I can go over to the left-hand side and click on that. So I'll click on maybe our craft and structure, text structure, and purpose, open that unit up. Now I'm going to just collapse everything really quickly so that we can go through the planner. So there is a little collapse button over on the left-hand side that will collapse everything up. So you can just start to look at the categories without any of the content. And I think this is really important because this is something that has been built and configured at the diocesan level. So that as we look at the boxes and the categories, all of this has been configured and customized based off of the pedagogical approach that the diocese wants to take. Now, Julie and I are piloting with the, I think it's the St. John's School. Is that right, Julie? St. John's School team.
Encinitas, yep.
Yep, piloting a new template that we're working on. And so that's something that we'll be discussing. And the idea with that new template is continuing to iteratively improve what we're doing and making sure it's relevant to the classroom, relevant to the learners. So there is a beta pilot of a new template. The great thing about it is a lot of the information that is already in this gets pulled into that. So any work that you would be doing in this template is still super relevant. You're not going to lose it. There is a style guide at the top. So this little style guide link is a hyperlink that will open up a style guide that was created specifically by the diocese. So you can look through this and use this as a resource. Really wonderful tool here to help guide that process. So again, when we get off the call, you've got questions, you're actually working on a unit, really strong sort of guidance and examples here that can be used for the various categories in the template. Let's see, how do I get back there? There we go. And then throughout the template, we'll open this up so you can actually see how it works as you click through. But the various boxes also have these little hover overs. So if you hover over the name of a category or that little I, it will open up a pop-up, and that has further guidance in there to help guide the process. I'm going to expand everything again. So again, I'm looking at Mary Elizabeth's unit, so I'm not actually developing this, I'm not editing it. We'll get to that in just a second. But you'll see up at the top here, I've got my prioritized standards. I have Catholic identity here. There's nothing in this particular unit. There's learning intention, success criteria, content, knowledge, skills. All of these elements, if we want to do a deeper session in the future, we can talk about what this means, how do we write a good success criteria, how do we write a good learning intention here. But I think that's probably a little bit deeper than some of the basics that we wanted to go over today. But if you do have questions about those, I think that's great feedback to send to Julie to say, hey, we could use a bit more time going through actual best practices of what these areas mean. I can see the assessments that have been created. You'll notice too, there's links on here, so I can open up any of those attachments and links. And then there's a section for resources as well. And then the supporting elements down at the bottom, the essential questions, the activities, and then those ESLERs for the school-wide learning expectations, differentiation, technology integration, and then the last piece here is a reflection. So in this particular unit, not all of these areas are filled out. So you'll see there are some blank areas, but when we get into actually developing and writing our own curriculum, you'll be able to actually edit those and click in. And so that's where we're going next, but I do want to pause and see if there's any questions.
We've got one in the chat here that says, instead of copying and pasting my lessons, can we attach them as a PDF? I think the answer is yes, but we want to show that really fast.
Yeah. So when we get into the actual, like when it's your course and you're able to edit it, I'll show you exactly how you can attach those pieces in there. Great question. Anything else?
And for those that we're still working with on getting you on your site, no, we're working on it. So I'll keep following up with you over there.
Cool. All right. So now, we've gotten a little bit of a lay of the land. We've seen the unit template. We can kind of guess, okay, we're building out these units, we're pasting them in Calendar. Well, how do I do that for my curriculum and my courses? So for that purpose, you'll head over to My Atlas and click on My Courses. So under the My Atlas tab, under My Courses, and you will see two different sections here, and you might have courses under both, or you might have courses under just one. The first column is curriculum I'm developing. So those are courses that I'm assigned that I can actually add units, delete units, edit units, align to standards, and so I have full editing privileges over these particular units. Courses I'm teaching, I can view those pieces and I'll be able to add lesson plans, but I won't be able to actually manipulate the units themselves. So if on your system this doesn't look right, you're missing a course, or there's a course that you don't teach anymore, or you're only seeing courses under what I'm teaching but nothing under developing, that's a great question to bring to your school admins, or you can always send us a quick question, but we don't want to be making the decisions on who should be assigned to what. That's really something at a school admin level. They should say, okay, yes, you should have editing privileges over this course versus maybe just view privileges. So feel free to jot that down and make note of that if it's not correct. That is something that your school admins can go ahead and make sure you're reassigned to the correct courses. But if you do have questions about that, feel free to send them through the chat, and Kelly and Kelby can make note of it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click into my ELA 8. And this is where Kelby was talking about, maybe some of us are starting with a clean slate. Maybe there's no units in our calendar. Maybe some of us are inheriting a really robust and well-designed curriculum. Maybe some of us are inheriting a curriculum that's in progress of being documented. So we might be in all different phases and stages of this process, and that's okay. We expect that. There are some schools that have started working with us much longer ago than others, and that's just part of the process, is working together to kind of meet where we are at this stage and then progress forward. If you open this page, you should also see right in the upper left-hand corner, if this is a collaborative course, Some of you will be assigned to courses where there's more than one curriculum developer or more than one teacher. That means you're all working together to develop this. You'll see collaboration up at the top here. And if you hover over that, you can see who else is actually assigned editing privileges over this course. So those would be your co-teachers or other teachers that teach that same course at the school. If it's just your name at the top, then that means this is just your course calendar. So you're the only one that will be able to edit it. If I want to create a brand new unit, I'll go ahead and click under the unit name and add that in here. So maybe we'll say comics and graphic novels are, gosh, if I could type, literature. And maybe I'll be teaching this leading up to Halloween. So I'll say, this is going to be a week 10 through week 13. And if I want to color code my units, I can do that. So I think, this might be something within an ELA setting. You might code units that are more writing focused versus reading focused. If you're in science, you might be able to code the lab units versus more kind of just classroom units. So whatever works for you in terms of that color coding that speaks to you, great. If you just like to have a very colorful calendar, awesome. But you get to choose what the colors are. So I'll go ahead and choose purple, drop that in the calendar here, and you'll see that comics and graphic novels unit now appears in my calendar. And let's say we get into October and I think, okay, we're just not going to be able to do this. I need to move this into the spring. We've got too many other things going on. All I have to do is click on that bar and drag that out, and I can move it around my calendar. If I say, oh, we can't spend a whole month on this particular unit, I can shorten that out. Or if I say, wow, this is really speaking to the kids and we're able to accomplish a lot, and this is a great way to connect in with some of the other skills that we need to be developing. I want to spend more time in this. I can stretch that unit out. And then you'll see here, I can have units that run concurrently. So if we're in one course, but we're working on a couple different concepts, a couple different units, you can have those units run concurrently as well. So lots of flexibility there. It's designed to be authentic. So as you go through the year, if you spend a little bit more time in a unit, make that reflection on the calendar. If you have to cut it short, make that reflection so that when you're looking at down the road, some of those analytics and those reports, it is authentically reflecting how you're building out and delivering your curriculum. I'll point out too that little drop-down arrow next to all of these units, if you end up wanting to delete a unit or you need to make some other changes, you can click on that little arrow. Edit unit attributes will allow you to change the color and things like that. Deleting it will send it into the recycle bin in this upper right-hand corner. I think we keep them in there for 2 years. Is that right, Kelby?
Yeah.
Yep. So if you delete a unit, it'll go into the recycle bin. You can always click on that recycle bin, find a unit that you've deleted within the last 2 years and restore that back to the calendar.
One thing to keep in, can I just mention something here? One thing to keep in mind, I find that sometimes these unit calendars turn into like the junk drawer, which is you like keep all these units and you need to clean out the junk drawer every now and then because you don't teach them anymore. So you really want it to reflect what's taught. Because notice right down there at the bottom of Chris's calendar, it says previous year. You can always go back and see the previous year. So it's really easy to go back and look. And I know Julie mentioned it over there in the chat, but every summer your site gets archived, meaning a copy gets taken and you can go access it anytime to go get previous year's curriculum. So if I teach something in the election year that I won't teach the next year, it allows me to remove it from my calendar and pull it back when there's another election and then modify it from there.
Exactly, yeah. So it's really important that the units that are in this calendar are actually the units we're teaching, not something that I used to teach, but maybe one day I'll teach it again and I want to keep it there because like Kelby said, you can always get to it from the archive. And if it's in here, that means it's going to show up in these analytics and reports that we probably won't get into today, but at some point we'll get in because this is really kind of the advanced phases of using Atlas, but it'll feed that data in. So it'll skew our results of the data if we're keeping things in here that aren't actually being delivered to our learners. Anything else? I'll also mention too, if you want, there is the opportunity under edit unit attributes to make a unit, oh, I don't know why that's showing up, to make a unit a draft. And when I make a unit a draft, it means it's only visible to me and the other collaborative owners of this unit. So only those people whose name shows up over here on the left-hand side will see a draft. But if it's published, that means it's visible to everybody under all curriculum. Any other questions before we jump into the unit itself? All right. So to start developing, again, same thing as in Browse, I'll click on the name of the unit, and this will open up the unit planner. You'll see that we've got all those same boxes and categories that we had when we looked under Browse, but here we can actually add in data and add in content based off of our planning and design of this particular unit. So we'll start here with the standards. So I'll go ahead and click Choose Standards. You'll have a drop down at the top. And so if you're not seeing your correct subject area, or maybe you're using subjects in another content area, the top drop down is going to be all the different sets of standards. So in this case, I was on the right one to begin with. So I'll click my English Language Arts 6 through 12, the California Common Core standards, and I'll make sure I'm on grade 8. Now, if I had some students that we need to go back and revisit some grade 7 standards, I can include grade 7 standards, even if it's my 8th grade class. Likewise, if I've got some advanced learners and we're really getting into some of the more of the high school level standards, I can pull those in too. In this case, I'm just going to stick with grade 8. I can look by strand, but maybe for now, I'll just keep all those open. And then down below this, you can see the actual standards being pulled through. Now, next to these standards, some of them, not all of them, some of them have a red P. And those are priority 1 standards. And what that means is they've been flagged at the diocesan level as needing attention based off of both the Renaissance STAR student assessment, as well as the, oh gosh, it's right on the tip of my tongue, student proficiency partners. Julie, help me out.
Student achievement partners.
Student Achievement Partners, thank you. Student Achievement Partners and the Renaissance STAR. So these are standards that we've identified at the diocesan level as needing attention, because both of those assessments said, you know, this is an area where our students could use some improvement and some focus on that scaffolding. So these have been targeted as priority 1 standards. Is I'm saying that correctly, right, Julie? Cool, okay. The P2 means that they were flagged or basically pulled out as needing attention from at least from just one of those 2 sources. So either the STAR Renaissance or the other assessments said this is a standard that we need to focus in on. So you'll see some with a P, the priority as a P1, and some with P2. And then you'll see some that don't have a P next to them. And that just means this was not a standard that was identified within those assessment results as needing that focus and that attention. So thinking about this particular unit, what are the standards that I will be including in my instruction and the goals of the unit? What purpose does this unit serve within my instruction to help us achieve these standards? So I'll go through, I'm not going to do this authentically because we don't have time. It takes time to read the standards and think about it. But as I'm going through and I say, yes, this is going to be a standard that we're building into our unit with a unit of instruction. And so is this standard, and so is this standard. You'll see right away on the far right side here, it's telling me how many other times in this particular course I'm targeting, meaning linking this up with a unit, and how many times it's being assessed too. So I get some real-time data here telling me as a curriculum developer, you know, what my coverage of these various standards might be. And I can even click on that and get a little bit more information below. So I can see this is also targeted in my poetry and unit course. and it is part of an assessment, a student poetry performance in that particular unit. The other thing that I can do here is I can say, I am teaching this particular standard, and then I can tell the system, I can put this into the system and say, this is a focus standard within this particular unit. So this is something that is the core focus, or one of the core focuses of this unit. It is a core part of the instruction. We're focusing in on this standard. Whereas this one down here, it's really more of a supporting standard. We talk about it, it's part of the instruction, but it's not the core of the instruction here. So this is going to be a supporting standard. Same thing down here, this is a supporting standard. This standard is going to be another focus, and so forth. So I go through that process. I identify which standards are going to be a part of the instruction within this particular unit. And once I'm done with that, I save it, and it will pull those over into the plan here. So I can see, what are my focus standards? What are my supporting standards? I don't have to copy and paste these. They're in here, and it also then ties into those really powerful analytics, so that we could go in and run a report and say, what standards are we teaching? What standards are we not teaching? How often are we teaching them? Where are they showing up? Are they showing up at a focus level or a supporting level? Are there standards that we're missing or not pulling into our curriculum? They're not part of our instruction. So this, again, feeds into some really powerful analytics that we've worked with some of the teams during those October and March sessions to really dive into that data and say, okay, now that we can see this, now we can look at our coverage of these standards. What does that mean? How do we take this back into that iterative process of curriculum improvement and review? Any questions about the standards? Nope.
Sorry, Chris. Oh, I thought I was muted, and then I was like, oh, I'm muted. There was a question about NGSS. Just to let you know, the only ones with priority standards are your ELA and math.
Mm-hmm.
So science doesn't have them. I know, I'm not sure, Julie, if you guys have a plan to identify priority standards there as well.
Yeah, I was actually just typing the response, but we have a small team of science site leaders who are working with John Spiegel at the county. Right now, we're developing proficiency scales, and then if it makes sense, then we'll look at prioritizing probably DCIs. So we'll take a look there and see what would make sense then to import into Atlas. So the answer is yes. If we end up doing that, they will also be imported into Atlas.
Perfect.
Great question. And to that point with the proficiency scales, I mentioned those have been written at the diocesan level for ELA, for math. They're currently being worked on, as Julie just said, with science. Our team is loading in a sample of those so we can make sure that we've got them in the right format. We're reviewing that with Julie and Jill. Once we get confirmation that, yep, this is the right format, that's how they should look, we will be adding those into all of the templates as well, so that you'll be able to align to those. It'll work the same way as the standards work, where you'll click choose standards, and then you'll be able to link those all, within that unit. So those will be available too. We want to make sure that we've got the formatting correct to really fit the philosophy of them. Cool. All right, some of the other boxes here, like the Catholic identity, learning intentions, success criteria, content knowledge skills. From a technical perspective, these are just going to be rich text editing tools. So I'll click into the box, I can start typing in, I can copy and paste, I can do things like change the text color, I can add tables in there, I can add links, images, embed videos, all sorts of different things. The style guide is going to be really helpful to kind of guide the process of what and how much should go into all of these boxes. We probably don't need a 15-page essay embedded in any of these boxes. So what is the important information that we want there? How do we present that out? That style guide is going to be really important for that. And all of the boxes do have the ability to add an attachment. If you click on that, it'll allow you to link to a website. You can attach a file. We do have integration with Google Drive. Google Drive just made an update that every company that has any kind of integration with Google right now is scrambling because it seems to have broken some of the code. So just in case you click on this right now and you're like, hey, it's not working, it will be back and up and running. It's something that big and small companies around the world, anybody that integrates with Google is dealing with the same issue of that integration piece. So bear with us while we get that sorted out. I'm sure it will be sorted out, so it's a high priority for us. And then same thing with these boxes. They're just those free text boxes. Any questions about those?
Do we want to give them about, just a couple minutes to get in there and make sure they can do it, Chris, and then we can move on?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
We'll give everybody a couple minutes. And then you can ask questions. We've had some good ones of like, where are my standards? So we've been chatting away. So don't
Cool.
hesitate to use that chat.
I will say too, I think one of the best ways to learn is to get kind of hands-on in this too. So if after the session today, folks get in, they start working, then more questions come up, we can always set up a follow-up kind of Q&A. So again, don't feel like this is your only opportunity to ask questions or that you got to learn it all now. We definitely are happy to jump back on in the future at some point too. All right, what do you think, Kelby? A couple more minutes, or should I start to show the assessment tool?
Let's start to show assessments. Good idea.
So as you scroll down, you'll also notice that there's a box here for assessments. And if I add a new assessment here, this is going to allow me to link up the standards with the assessment, identify the method and mode of that assessment, add attachments to it, and so forth. And this all, again, feeds back into the data of the system. So the assessment name here, I'll say student created comic. The method here, this drop-down list, it should be pretty similar to what you see in your system, but this is a customizable list, so it might be something that's different in your system. Another part of that beta template design that we're talking about with Jill and Julie is going through and maybe trying to pare down this list a little bit so that it's maybe half a dozen or so different big umbrella or bucket methods to help with some of that reporting. But I'll go ahead and say that this is a visual arts project. The assessment type here, this can also be customized. So you might see diagnostic in your system, but in most cases, you'll see formative and summative. And this is going to be the summative assessment for my particular unit. I can add a description in here. So I'm going to say students are going to get in groups of 2 or 3. They're going to design a comic book or graphic novel, etc. And then I can go over and say which standards are actually being assessed with this particular assessment. So all the standards that I selected up at the top as being taught within this particular unit now filter in to what I'm actually assessing my students on with this particular assessment task. So I'll be assessing this standard and this standard and this standard. And you'll see here, again, I get that same feedback from the system telling me how many other times in this course this standard is being assessed and how many other times in this unit this standard is being assessed. The attachments with the assessments, I think, are particularly relevant. It's a really nice thing to add in student examples of student product and student work here, so that if we have a new teacher coming in, or maybe you're teaching a different course next year, there are examples for that teacher to see, okay, I see this is really exemplary student product. It helps with calibrating and building, what am I trying to say? Calibrating and consistency in some of the grading structures and so forth. So I'd recommend utilizing that add attachment here with the particular assessments. And then I'll just save this and it'll drop that assessment in the planner. I can add as many assessments as I need to for this particular course. So I might have a couple formative, one summative, and so forth. But all those assessments can be added in here. And again, that feeds directly into that analytics and reporting so that I can say, within grade 8 ELA, which standards are being taught, which standards are being assessed, what different methods and modes are we using to assess our students? Is it always written exams or tests or papers, or do we have some more creative assessments or oral assignments and things like that? Any questions or thoughts on that assessment piece? All right. The other boxes here, again, are really just free text. So again, you can kind of type in there and add them, add attachments. Some of them are drop downs, so really simple, like the school-wide learning expectations. Some schools, this looks a little bit different, but you should have the ability to choose which strand this fits under, and then what that individual ESLR is. There is a box to type more information over on the right-hand side. Same thing with differentiation and tech integration. They're just boxes with drop downs, so you can choose kind of what you're doing with that differentiation. Add that in, and then when you click into another box, you'll see it show up there. And then the reflection piece down at the bottom, I'll just, even though from a technical perspective, it's the same as the other boxes, this is really important too, because I think, when we conceive of the curriculum process and we know it's iterative and we know that it's based off of feedback and reflection and how our learners reacted to the content and what we might want to do differently next year, this piece is going to be really helpful for capturing that conversation so that when we do go back in and we start to make changes or revisions, we've got that real-time reflection of, hey, just finished this unit today, students loved it, would love to spend more time on XYZ, or students needed to go back. There was something we missed here, and so we had to go back and spend our time kind of re-scaffolding some of those earlier skills and didn't get to some of the more advanced parts of this unit. All of that is going to be particularly relevant in that iterative process. And since we've only got about 5 minutes left, and I definitely don't want to keep anybody past that, I want to just kind of stop here and see if there are questions. Kelby, if there's anything you would add or anything you want to make sure that we highlight before we end. We didn't really get into the lesson planner tab. We can save that for another time. I would also say building out the unit content is the first step anyway. So feel free to explore the lesson planner. Feel free to send us questions about it. But really that unit planner template side of things right now is probably the main focus for where we are in this process.
And Helica had a great idea as you're putting in your assessments, linking in some examples is also really good with student work. Just so you kind of keep that library. I know, we've all been new teachers at some point in time. If we had an example of what that looked like at that grade level or at that area, it would be helpful. So think of this also as almost like building out a portfolio, not just to help you, but to help others. It's also really good as you talk about, standards-based grading and getting into that practice of having that for grade calibration meetings is a really good tool. So kind of pooling them all in one place makes it easy to have those conversations later.
Absolutely.
One of my top tips, FYI, is just do this as you teach a unit. It's a lot easier than trying to wait 6 months. And if I try to go back and put in my first unit that I did now at the end of October, it would be really, I'll tell you, my brain's a little mushy right now. So it would be hard to go back in and put that information in. So if you take, that 30 minutes, 40 minutes at some point, right after you finish teaching a unit, it'll flow pretty fast in terms of getting that information in. So that's my tip.
Yeah. And along those,
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Along those same lines, another great tip is don't let perfection get in the way of getting something in there and doing the work, right? There is no perfect essential question. There is no perfect learning. If you can get something in there and it works for you, you can always go back and refine it and revise it, but don't get caught up on trying to make sure that every aspect of this is perfect, because curriculum is a living, breathing process. Writing, documenting, reviewing curriculum, it's a living, breathing process. And so it's not about perfection. It's about getting to a place where it becomes useful and informative to the instruction in the classroom.
Yeah. And for those that teach older, I was a 5th grade teacher. I would actually pull this out with my students and say, hey, what did we learn? And they would talk about it. And I just, we do it together. So there's also an opportunity to bring in some of your students and say, what can you do now after we did this unit? And that it gets them involved in the learning as well. Or what were some of the ways we looked at how you could show me how you could learn this? And so, it's 10 minutes with the students to talk about it as well. So there's lots of different ways you can kind of think about bringing in your unit plan. One question coming in from Sylvia, Chris, is how do you get to those prior years again? Can you show us?
Great question. Great question. So there's a couple different ways to do it. If I wanted to look at this particular unit from previous years, well, it wasn't in because I just created it, but let me go into a unit that would have been there. So there's a couple different ways. From the calendar, if I wanted to see all of the units from previous years, down in the bottom left, I have that little previous year button, and I can click on that and go back to past years. So I can see all the units from those past years and click into those and view those. If I was in a specific unit, so it looks like there's a unit called Here's My New Unit. If I'm in this unit and I wanted to see what this one looked like last year, I could do the same thing, come down to the very bottom, and on the bottom left, there's that previous year, and that's going to open up last year's Here's My New Unit, and you'll see the date up at the top there just to remind you that it's not the current unit. So those are some ways to get there. The other way, under All Curriculum, go to Browse, and then use that current year filter on the bottom of the filters on the left-hand side and choose the year you want to look at, and that'll allow you to browse all of the courses all together from past years.
You all have been awesome. Thank you so much. You have good questions have been coming through, so really appreciate that. Hopefully you're walking away with a better understanding of Atlas at the end of today.
Yeah, and I'll just share here too. I'll pull it up. I think I put it in here. Yep, there's my email address. So my hair was a little shorter back then. I have my COVID long hair now, but if you have any questions or anything, feel free to email me. Julie also is great. We can answer questions about the system and some of the process, but if you've got any questions about really kind of the more pedagogical or the philosophy or what we're looking for when we talk about learning intentions and who you should be collaborating with, I think Julie is a great one to answer those questions, because it's probably more specific to the diocese or maybe your school admin as well.
And if there are any school admins on here or system administrators, if you ever want to do a walkthrough and just do a site cleanup, let us know. We'll sit down and walk through your site with you. If you have some teachers that you need to add or delete.
I want to. I do. that was going to be that was going to be my question, because I went through it after our meeting on Friday, and there's so many teachers that are not here, and I was just like, well, how can we go through and organize?
Yeah. Do you have time now, Teresa? Do you want to do it real quick, or do you want to schedule time later?
No, I can do it now. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to stop the recording here because I don't think everyone, but if anyone else that is a system admin, that means you have this little admin button that Chris has on his. If you have that on your Atlas system, it means you can make some behind the scenes changes. So if you're that person for your school, you're more than welcome to stay. If not, we wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Oh, that rhymed. I'm going for the rhyming. It's because I got up at 4 a.m., Chris. Uh-oh.
Wow,
oh my gosh.